Hey everyone, welcome back to my shop. My name's Derek. Thanks for clicking on my video today. So I've got a really cool video for you behind me. Not sure if they're in shot. I've got two welders, the Titanium Easy Flux 125 and the Century FC-90, which is out of shot. All right, so let's just start off right here in the back. As you can see, they both have fans. Both of these fans run all of the time. It doesn't matter if you've welded with it or not. They do not come on with the temperature of the machine. They're just always on. They both have power switches right here back towards the cord. A couple of vent spaces. Look, even these are the exact cut in the exact same place, so that's pretty interesting. I apologize for the mess of cords and leads and everything. There's so many wires to these machines that it's just a mess, so I apologize for that. So here on the side you can see that there is some extra ventilation that the Century does not have. It is on both sides of the Titanium, and either side of the Century has it. So here at the front, or the the business end of these machines, this is where I can start kind of giving my opinion. I like the front, the control panel here on the front of the Titanium much better, because the letters and numbers on the wire feed speed and voltage controls are significantly easier to see than on the Century. The Century, it's sunk in back here, so in my shop where I don't have super great bright lights, a lot of the times I find myself having to pretend my hand is my head, like bend down and get like right there to see exactly where I'm dialing in on the control knobs on the Century. And that's not just even that I have bad eyesight or anything, it's just really hard to see because it's sunk in so far back there. I like how on the Titanium it's a little bit further forward and a little bit easier to see. It's just not sunk so far back into the machine. Another thing I like a little bit better about the Titanium is that the voltage is labeled in letters and the wire feed speed is labeled in numbers. Over here on the Century, it's numbers for both of them. And when I first got this machine, I spent a lot of time forgetting which control was which. For the longest time, I thought the top control knob was the wire feed speed, where it's actually the voltage. With this one, it'll be easier to remember. Voltage is the letters, wire feed speed is the numbers. Other than that, just back to the facts. There is a ventilation grill here on the front of the Titanium. It looks to be a little bit smaller than the, and maybe not even quite as wide open as on the Century FC-90. A place where the ground cables come out of the front here, as well as the lead for the Stinger. They look actually almost identical. So here on the top, they both have latches with flip open lids. Very similar. The Titanium does appear to be a little bit slimmer. And then here on the insides of the lids, they both have settings that they give you to kind of help guide you in setting up the machine for the thickness of steel and the thickness of the wire that you're welding. I have to say the Titanium is a little bit easier to see, read, and it is a little bit more attractive, but honestly, that doesn't really matter. So we'll talk about the wire feed mechanisms real quick. Actually, you can't see those, so we'll talk about the spool mechanisms. Here on the Titanium, it is adjustable, and some people might actually like that better, and I would understand, I guess, if that was the case. But I actually like the spool system on the Century FC-90 better, because all this is just a spring, and it just is like a quarter turn, and it locks in, and it puts the proper pressure on the spool so that it doesn't, it's not too tight to where it doesn't want to pull, but it's not so loose that it just unwinds. It gets it just right. And you don't even have to mess with it or think about it. It's super simple and super easy. So I'm not giving you the best, most perfect view of the wire feed mechanisms. Hopefully you'll forgive me. They look almost identical. If these machines aren't made in the same factory, I'd have to say that these wire feed mechanisms probably are. They look identical, exactly the same. They work exactly the same. I put both of these spools in just tonight, and they function in every way and look in every way exactly the same. They do have these little knurled wheels that bite onto the flux core wire and feed it, and you can reverse them for 035 wire or 030 wire. I don't have any problem with them. Everybody kind of knows that premium machines, or at least better quality machines, come with steel wire feed mechanisms, but I've had absolutely no issues with these plastic ones. I've been using this Century for, I want to say I'm going on like my 3rd year of owning it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But it does look to me like the Titanium has, and it is all kind of coiled up still, probably an extra foot. You probably are getting an extra foot on the Titanium. The lengths of the ground clamps for both of these machines are pretty much exactly the same. They're actually pretty short, but for my tiny little shop, that's actually a good thing because I have less cord to mess with and try and manage when I've got so little space. As far as the stinger leads go, the Titanium might be a hair shorter, but they're pretty much exactly the same. It's not enough to even really note it as one being longer or better than the other. The thickness and quality of the wire on these machines for the power cords, hopefully I can bring it into focus a little bit better. They seem pretty much the same. It's definitely, they both have lower quality cords, but they seem to be the exact same thickness. The thickness for the cords on the ground clamps seems to be the same as well. So let's talk about the ground clamps real quick. This is a great big brass heavy duty ground clamp that I bought aftermarket for my Century FC-90 from Harbor Freight. The Century FC-90 does not come with this ground clamp. It comes with a ground clamp that looks exactly like this cheesy dinky thing. I would recommend, if you're going to buy these machines, go pick up a better ground clamp from Harbor Freight. These big brass ones are like 12 bucks, or they've probably gone up since I bought it, but very reasonably priced, and they open up a lot wider, just a better ground clamp altogether. So the ground clamps that actually come stock on the Century FC-90 is the exact same little piece of junk. So we'll talk about the actual stinger leads real quick. The MIG guns, lots of different names for them. They look like they could have easily been made in the same factory with just some small design changes, since the Century FC-90 was manufactured at least 3 years ago, probably closer to 3.5. And this Titanium was probably manufactured within the last 6 months. These MIG guns do seem to be pretty much exactly the same level of quality. Both plastic, really not a whole lot to say about them. Neither of the triggers feel better than the other. Both feel pretty cheap. No complaints about either of them. I think they're both totally adequate. They just look pretty much exactly the same. The Century says QB150 and the Titanium says TT150. So I think that is enough of that. Let's get to welding. So a couple things real quick. I always feel the need to give a little bit of a disclaimer. Number one, I'm still a novice welder. I don't consider myself even an intermediate, and absolutely in no way, shape, or form a professional welder. So these machines might be able to weld better than I even can, and there wouldn't really be a very good comparison. Number two, in the Century, I'm running Lincoln inner shield, and in the Titanium, I'm running the wire that came with it. Number three, I used the Titanium for the very first time ever to make these little tacks to make this T-shaped piece of metal that the camera won't focus on, to run beads on for fillet welds. It did not seem like it was running right. It almost seemed like it was running DC electrode positive, where flux core is supposed to be DC electrode negative. So I guess that brings me to the fourth thing. I don't know if that's the cheap wire that came with the Titanium that's causing the really bad welds, or if it's that maybe the machine's either broken or just set up wrong with the wrong connections. Alrighty, so we're starting with the Titanium first. There's definitely something wrong with this thing. I'm just gonna try turning up the settings real quick. Now I'm blowing huge holes in here, and I didn't turn it up that much. Well, that's half, and so far I'm not one bit impressed. I was kind of thinking of hanging on to the titanium and just selling the Century FC-90 and hanging on to the titanium. It's a little bit more compact machine, and there's some things I like about it a little more, and it's just newer. If I can't do something about this thing's going right back to the store, and I'm just gonna get my money back. So that's the first weld. It looks terrible. I've got 2 holes blown through. And even where there's a solid bead, it just looks terrible. There's so much spatter. It looks awful. I guess that's the back side of it. Okay, so I use the recommended speed or settings on the titanium, and that's when I got the first kind of really weak arc. And then I turned it up like just a little bit, and then it was burning holes through. So doing the same thing, going on the recommended settings for 12 gauge steel. I don't think I mentioned that before. This is a 12 gauge steel on the Century FC-90, and we'll see how much better it welds. I can tell you right off the bat, that is a significantly better weld. So I'm going to try the wire, the same wire that I'm using in the Century and the titanium, and see if that makes a difference. They may have just given absolute trash wire to start with. So that is the titanium weld. It gets a little bit better there at the end after I change the settings back just a little bit. And there is the Century FC-90 weld. I'm not super consistent. I am a little out of practice. Excuses, excuses, excuses. It started off really, really nice. Then I just started moving a little bit too quick. But significantly nicer weld with the Century. So let's change the wires. Okay, we're back to trying it with the titanium with the Lincoln inner shield wire inside of here. So we'll see if we can make a difference. Oh, I do need to adjust the settings real quick. One thing I have to say real quick that I don't like about the difference in this test is that on the back side of this now is that nice Century FC-90 bead, and that might help make it look too nice, honestly, but we'll see. So I have to say that was definitely better, but nowhere near the quality that the FC-90 seems to give. So here's the titanium bead. Actually turned out decent. There's the Century FC-90 bead, the new titanium bead, and the old titanium bead. So it looks okay, but I'm gonna try one more time on the other side here, where I had the burn throughs, and there's just like not as nice of a bead on the other side of it to just give it another shot. Hopefully it'll come into focus. I don't know what's going on with this camera today, but there's the second bead I ran with it. Definitely even a little bit worse quality than the second one that I ran. So I've ran 3, the first being the worst, the second being the best, and the third being in between. Alright, so here's the deal. This was definitely a Century FC-90 versus Titanium Easy Flux 125 video. But it was also kind of like a first impressions. I wanted to just kind of get a feel for this machine, see if I wanted to hang on to it. I guess my conclusion is, well, let me say this first really quick. One of the things, I don't know if I mentioned it already, but I was planning on maybe just selling the Century FC-90 and keeping the Titanium. I figured I could almost offset the cost completely, get a brand new machine, try something else out, have something else to make some videos with and whatnot. From what I just experienced tonight, I am not a fan of the Titanium and I'm hanging on to the Century FC-90. I want to just make this clear really quick. I'm willing to admit that maybe there was some operator error there. Maybe I'm just really good at using the Century FC-90 because I've had it for 3 years. There's nothing wrong with the Titanium. Maybe it's just operator error. I'm totally willing to admit that, but I just gotta say that I don't think that's the case. I'm also gonna say that maybe I just got a dud. Kind of seems like there's something wrong with this thing right out of the box. If that's not the case, then maybe it's just, maybe all of them run this way. But it's way easier to lay down a nice bead for me with the Century FC-90. So this isn't a bash on the Titanium 120 Flux or Easy Flux 125 video. I wanted to like this machine. Like I said, I like the controls and the user interface quite a bit more than the Century FC-90. But after actually doing some welds, I have to say I'm unimpressed, and I'm taking it back and I'm keeping the Century. So that's kind of a bummer. Like I said, I wanted to like it. It is what it is. I'll say this, I'm not going to discourage you from picking this machine up. Go ahead and pick this machine up, try it out, see if yours comes out of the box better, do some practice beads with it. I've probably had this thing sitting in my shop for at least a month now. And I just ran the first beads with it. I just finally kind of had a chance to pull it out and run it. Maybe if you spend a little bit more time with it, you'll find that it's a great machine, and just take some dialing in. I'm finding it pretty hard to get dialed in accurately, even based on their settings, and then trying to adjust for the problems that I'm seeing, and it's still just not really working out for me. So I'm not going to recommend it, but I'm also not going to say this is a skip, don't buy, pass. It's either operator error, but I'm doubtful of that, or it's a dud out of the box. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm not keeping it. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you are not a subscriber, I'd really appreciate it if you went and hit subscribe, and everybody else, I'd appreciate it if you gave me the thumbs up on this video, because I put a lot of work into them. It helps me out when you give me a thumbs up and when you go subscribe, and my channel needs help. I need all the thumbs up I can get, and I'd really appreciate it if you did that. I hope to see you in the next video. Have a good one. Alright guys, so here's the deal. It's the next day after I made this video. I was editing it, and when I got done editing it, I put it up to upload it. And while it was uploading, I was like, you know what? I want to go give this machine one more chance, make sure I'm being fair to it and to myself. So I got these 2 pieces of 14 gauge scrap. And there are settings on the machine that it tells you to set for 14 gauge. And I went ahead and put the machine right exactly where it was saying to be, and I started welding, and it gave me this chicken scratch looking weld. The thing is that when I was welding, it wouldn't hold a consistent arc. It kept cutting out like it did on the very first weld that I made in the original video, and so there's definitely something wrong with it. I kind of want to say that it looks almost like they hooked it up wrong, and like it's running in DC electrode positive when flux core is supposed to be ran in DC electrode negative. Yeah, so it's hard to say exactly what the issue is, but that's kind of what it seems like. It gives really bad spatter. It seems like the wire gets way too hot, but it could be another issue, so I'm not even going to attempt to try and figure it out myself. I'm just going to take it back to the store, get my money back, just keep using the Century FC-90. I will say that I think that I just got a dud, and I think that every company is going to put out, you know, something's going to slip through QC once in a while, and you're going to get a bad unit right out of the box. And I think that's something that is sort of, it's not really prevalent with Harbor Freight, but it definitely seems like something that happens with their products a lot. But it happens even with Milwaukee, DeWalt, Makita, you know, all other different kinds of brands. Probably not like your Millers and your Lincolns, because there's, you know, people are spending multiple thousands of dollars on those things, and it's a giant waste of money. But when you're talking about smaller products that cost significantly less, I think it's a little bit easier for things to slip through the quality control cracks, and I think that's just what happened here. So I'm definitely not going to bash on this machine. I just think I got a dud, and hopefully you don't get a dud. I would pick that thing up. If you were to buy the Titanium, I'd take it straight home and start welding with it just to make sure it's good. Just like all products, I recommend this. Well, at least I used to preach it a lot more. When you buy something from Harbor Freight, take it home and immediately use it just to make sure that it's working out of the box. So yeah, I'm about 99% sure at this point that there's something wrong with the machine, and it's not my fault. But I'm sure I'll get people commenting on this video telling me I'm stupid and I'm incompetent and I shouldn't be making videos and things like that, or welding videos, because I'm so incompetent. I've had lots of those comments already, but yeah, guys, so it doesn't really matter to me. They can say that all they want if that's going to be the case, and it is what it is. There's something wrong with this machine, and I'm 99.9% sure of it. So it's going back to the store. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.